Okay, well, guess who works for an American company? Because you can see me photoshopped within an inch of my life there. And I'm here to talk to you about why we need endpoint security. You're going to hear this word zero trust an awful lot of times today. And it's a really, really important concept for you to bear in mind. Because zero trust is this idea of only granting the least amount of privilege to your users, to your endpoints, and everything that's going on in your environment. You're assuming that a breach is inevitable, or that it's occurred already. So we just need to constantly limit what people are doing. So with that in mind, we're just going to talk about what the purpose of endpoint security is. Everybody's familiar with viruses, adware, malware, spyware, rootkits, botnets, all of these very, very scary things that are available, and they end up on your workstations, and these are the tools that the bad guys try to bring into your workstations. And as the computer industry and the IT industry and many other industries iterate through the process, we come up with remedies. So for viruses, you have your antivirus. Everybody remembers, Norton with these red braces on the front cover of the box. All these things are there. As viruses get more and more elaborate, we've got next-gen AVs, we've got various heuristics, we've got AI trying to solve all those things, we've got threat hunting, we've got every time a new problem arrives, we evolve a new solution. And the problem with all of this is, with ransomware, with keyloggers and everything like that, all of these applications are obviously bad. A virus is trying to ruin your system. A keylogger is trying to steal your information. The problem is, a modern attacker is going to leverage legitimate tools against you. One of the first traces of an attack on your systems you're going to see is perhaps an IP scanner that's been installed. Somebody gets onto one of your endpoints, they install this IP scanner, they use it to try and discover the rest of the information on your system. So with that advanced IP scanner, I can discover your desktops, I can discover your printers, I can discover the laptops on the environment, the servers. With this legitimate piece of information, I have all of the information I need to go and start launching an attack on your system. So our traditional endpoint security isn't going to stop that. Then you've got other software that's out there. People use FileZilla or, your own legitimate tools to go and cause problems. Now, this is everyone's nightmare scenario. You come in the morning and suddenly the accounts PC, Lockbit, how did that happen? And the way that happens is, AnyDesk is sitting on a computer, somebody connects in over AnyDesk, they use PowerShell, they zip up those files, they exfiltrate the data, and they go and lock your entire system. Nothing that's happened there is, in essence, a bad action. All that's happening is that people are leveraging your legitimate software against you. So again, traditional security isn't going to help you there. So you need to come up with another idea to try and stop all of this. And so threats that constitute, bad actors and legitimate pieces of software, it's all software. And, if you analyze a piece of malware, you're going to find the code in that malware. That's the same code that your legitimate developer is using. And chances are that sample code is out there on GitHub or Stack Overflow someplace. It's all legitimate software, but it's being leveraged and used against you. So what we want to do is we want to block everything. You decide you're allowed software. After that, we are just going to, we're going to block everything else. And the way we do that in ThreatLocker is, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm not going over time. The way we do that in ThreatLocker is with this concept we call learning mode. We've got our agent that's going to sit there, it's going to create your allow list, and that's going to allow your software to, your environment and your software to run as normal. Now, it's a common misconception that, you have all of these cool tools, that you're going to be protected against anything bad that might happen on your environment. You're not. 70% of ransomware attacks, they happen out of time when nobody's observing things. They happen at a weekend, they happen over Christmas, they happen at holidays. So there's always this constant threat. And then the next thing we're going to hear is AI. Everybody's going to say, hey, I'm using various AI tools. These are going to help me. What we have is an example here from ChatGPT. We asked GPT to write us a Excel macro that will download a executable and run it from within one of your tools. So again, as well as your protection tools using AI, those tools that want to exploit your system are also able to use it. Here we've got another one where we're asking ChatGPT to write us a reverse shell. It's actually a really interesting experiment. If you've got developers out there, you should ask them to try and do this. So if you download a reverse shell from the internet, your Defender or your other applications are going to stop that. If you run an entirely novel piece of software, something that's been compiled with Python or C# or one of those tools that are on your system, it's going to be able to run, it's going to be able to exploit, and none of your existing systems are going to be able to pick this up. Now, as well as downloading an example from GitHub or making something entirely new, you've got all of these common ways of distributing malware. And again, there's lots of really cool tools that are going to protect you from phishing, from that open remote desktop. You've got the very scary idea of those probably foreign nation states that are going to attempt to grant access to your system via brokers. One thing that really shocks me are ads. You think that Apple or Google, these seemingly legitimate companies, that they'd apply some due diligence here. But if you go and search for a piece of software, the first 3 or 4 results you get are ads, and these ads are junk, and there's an awful lot of chances that you end up exposing your system via those as well. You've got various hacking tools, which is a really cool area that we might be able to get into later on. And then you've got your standard application vulnerabilities. All of this stuff is out there. All of these things involve 0 days. All of these things involve actions that your traditional tools aren't going to be able to deal with. And in addition to all of this, you have attacks where they don't need to install any software at all. They can take PowerShell, your existing tools. They can take a command prompt. They can take that Python interpreter that's included in your accounts package and use those to launch a living off the land attack. Something that we all need to bear in mind is, and it's especially in the nature of software and IT, is every time you open your Chrome browser, every time you open your accounting package, it's got access to every other piece of data that you as a user have access to. So if somebody is able to leverage and somebody is able to exploit those existing pieces of software, their opportunities to start causing problems are, they're literally endless. So what we want you to do is we want the idea of ring fencing to be introduced as well. We want to limit what the legitimate software is able to do also. Your accounts package can access your accounting data. There's no reason for your word processor to access your accounting data. That word processor that can have a macro that can loop through the data and can exfiltrate it out of the system. We want to just keep everything, again, the idea of the absolute least amount of privilege for any of the applications or systems that are running on the system. One of our favorite tools these days is PowerShell. Every IT admin in the room uses PowerShell all the time, every day, but also pretty much 87% of, and I have the source of that statistic someplace, 87% of ransomware attacks these days use PowerShell. Why wouldn't you? I've got a really cool utility there that exists on every Windows computer that allows me to manipulate files, that allows me to access the internet, that allows me to walk through the registry. So we want to be so the idea of ring fencing is we stop all of these things from happening. Now, last year there was an exploit in Office, I believe it was called Felina. And what it did is, again, it leveraged your legitimate tools against you. It caused Office to crash, and when Office crashed, it called Windows Diagnostics tool, and then that was leveraged to call out to PowerShell, and with that PowerShell, it was able to go and download potentially bad packages from the internet. So the idea of ring fencing is going to stop that for you as well. Now, this is something that we're not actually going to do today, but if you ever see somebody from ThreatLocker asking you to stick a USB key into one of your devices, don't do it. I don't know if any of you have heard of these little rubber ducky devices. What they are is it's a piece of hardware that simulates a keyboard. You might block USB storage in your environment. You don't block new keyboards being installed. When that device is plugged in, it can execute an arbitrary amount of code, and again, it can be used to exfiltrate data, to take things out of your system. Normally, we think people picking up a USB key in a car park and plugging it into a laptop only happens in spy movies, but this can happen in reality. And it's kind of a funny story. We were at an event in the Middle East recently, and this thing happened. Somebody plugged the device in. They were a rather large Middle Eastern bank, and they managed to self-exfiltrate all of their data. And to make it even funnier, they did it twice. Their existing systems didn't pick it up because, again, nothing bad actually happened. PowerShell opened. PowerShell communicated with Google Storage. These are normal use cases in your modern environment. But PowerShell shouldn't have been able to access those data. PowerShell shouldn't have been able to access the internet. So again, with the idea of building a zero trust environment, you just make sure that your applications can only do what you want them to do. So again, keep PowerShell away from your files and folders, keep PowerShell away from the internet. A even more recent example was 3CX, the soft phone system. Again, it was exploited with an upstream attack. Somebody corrupted those DLLs on GitHub. 3CX went to try and download them. Again, if you can block that from happening, again, the infected software is there, but you stop it from being able to do anything out of the ordinary. So again, keep your backups away with your backups. A very common scenario is they get in and they change the backup location string. So you expect your backup to be downloaded to Eoin's company. Instead, we upload the backups to, RussianHackers.com. They delete your backups, and suddenly you're in that position of being ransomware. So again, we limit where your applications are able to go as well. So again, it's all kind of the similar idea. We just want to make sure that your data and your applications can only access where they need to, and nobody else is going to be able to come in and exploit them. Now, I'm just going to quickly go through the rest of these because, again, I don't want to go over time. The biggest security challenge on your networks today is there's no network. Everything is blurred. There isn't a server anymore. There's the internet. We're sitting out there, and there's all sorts of other parties involved. Obviously, we've got the Russians, the Chinese, North Korea. I meant to replace this with Manchester City. You can tell my last speech was in Ireland. So we've got a certain character up there. But again, you're sharing the network with everybody. You might want them to have access to what's going on. So again, control what's able to access the various items on your network. You want to be able to dynamically allow what's able to get into your system and stop anything negative from being able to come in. The final piece that I'm going to touch on is this idea of a security triangle. We need to work on all three sides of this triangle. The detection side, your antivirus, your phishing, your EDRs and threat hunters, all absolutely vital. Where we sit is on the control end, stop things from happening. And then finally, most importantly, you've got that human factor. You can have the best detection and the best controls in the world in place. If you're not looking after the human side of things, again, you're going to have real problems in your environment. That's a quick overview of our platform. If you talk to Leo and Sebastian in the exhibition hall, they'll be able to go through all of that information for you. We've got all sorts of cool apps and things like that, so please go check them out. And a few key things to just bear in mind in the end. Allow listing is extremely effective at stopping bad things from happening. Ring fence, stop your applications from being exploited against you. Blah, blah, blah. This is all the sales bit. These are all cool things that you need. We've got an awful lot of, we can help you with your compliance. And the most important thing is we want to stop you from appearing on a list like this. Don't let yourself get exposed and put out there, and the reputational and the damage and things like that that can happen. It really isn't worth it. So thank you, everybody, for your time, and thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.